weeks ago now, we got some fresh news about the upcoming 5th Descendants film. Last year, Disney released a 4th film that kind of rebooted the franchise titled Descendants: The Rise of Red. And in that film, we got the classic tease that there was going to be more to the story, just like in the previous trilogy. Turns out, this story is only meant to have one extra movie. That could change, of course. I have no idea how profitable Descendants is as a franchise these days, but I would have thought they'd go straight back to the trilogy formula. Maybe I'm just being greedy for more films. They're the very definition of so bad it's good, and I just can't get enough. Before I sat down to write this, I worked my way down a Descendants rabbit hole and spent a good 20 minutes just laughing at Doug's hair transformation throughout the original films. Why was that kid looking like Nicolas Cage? I'll never understand. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is, I love this franchise. It has terrible CGI, questionable fashion choices, and a fairy tale universe that boggles the mind of how everything could exist at the exact same time. Yet the songs just slap every single time. This franchise has no business being as enjoyable as it is. So of course, I'll overanalyze any fresh news I can get and share with you my thoughts on it all. That's what we'll be doing today. No time like the present, so let's get started. The first bit of information is the title announcement. The 5th installment of the franchise will be called Descendants: Wicked Wonderland. To me, this is a pretty interesting title. In the previous film, Red and Chloe went back in time to their parents' days at high school, aka Merlin Academy, in the hopes of preventing Red's mother, the Queen of Hearts, from turning evil and killing Chloe's mother, Cinderella. Long story short, they supposedly achieve this as they prevent Bridget, Red's mum, being utterly humiliated by the villain kids at the school prom. I do have to say, suspiciously big downfall from handing out cupcakes to all and sundry to just being chill with killing your old best friend, but you know, whatever. That could either be explored or just be as is, and you'd have to accept it. The Descendants universe really just does work like that. So the end of the film is them returning to the present day, and Red's mum is now completely nice and lovely, which begs the question, why would her kingdom/homeland be wicked? Would it be her fault? Is she still a villain but incognito this time? Or has someone else done something to make her appear so? I suppose we'd better dive into the teasers of the plot we've received to try to make sense of it all. Now this is somewhat confusing as there's been various leaks and descriptions made, yet there isn't a whole lot of credible references I could find for the majority of it. So I'm just going to start with what's actually been stated by people involved with the production, and then we can dive into stuff that's popped up on the wiki and IMDb. The executive producer Suzanne Todd stated that due to the end of The Rise of Red with a warning about the unforeseen consequences of time travel, in the sequel, there will be future good and evil turns for sure. There's also a bunch of confirmed characters returning and some fresh faces. It would probably be best for me to list them before I actually dive into my theories for the plot. Characters we already know include Red and Chloe, the main protagonists from the original film, the Queen of Hearts, Cinderella, and King Charming as their parents. The fairy godmother from all the other films will be there. Maddox Hatter from the last film with his Time Turner pocket watch will also be returning. Older versions of the Smee twins will be there. They appeared in the 3rd Descendants movie, but they weren't particularly memorable. Then there's also a list of new characters, largely just descendants from various characters in the Disney movies. There's Louis Madrigal, son of Louisa Madrigal from Encanto. Man, they joined that kingdom fast. Max Hatter, who's the son of Maddox Hatter. I can't remember if he was actually referenced in the previous film or not. It's so tricky to remember when all the names are so similar to one another. I mean, talk about ego. Pink will be a new younger sister of Red and the second daughter of the Queen of Hearts. Pink. Hazel Hook will be the daughter of Captain Hook, younger sister of deranged, extremely extra Harry Hook, who I now learn has 2 other siblings in the Descendants verse. My head's never going to stop spinning on how many characters exist here. It's worse than Once Upon a Time. Then we have Robbie Hood, son of Robin Hood, who's not a fox in this universe, disappointing. Maybe he'll be like Ben and have some fox tendencies. Ugh, now I'm remembering Ben's terrible roar. Thanks, Disney. To round it all up, we have Felix Facilier, the son of Dr. Facilier. To be honest, I reckon there's going to be much more, but these are the core characters. I'm also surprised they don't have the actors that played the younger versions of the Queen of Hearts and Cinderella here. Maybe because they won't be that important? I kind of think you're going to need them to have some sort of flashback and actually see how the end plays out now that Red and Chloe have changed the timeline, right? I guess we'll see. Other unverified plot descriptions include, picking up shortly after the events of Descendants: Rise of Red, this next chapter explores what happily ever after is really like for Red and Chloe, following their return from their time-traveling adventures. An unexpected villain attempts to harness the magic of Wonderland for their own gain, when Wonderland plays host to Auradon's Kingdom Cup games. Red and Chloe must fight the villain to save Wonderland whilst grappling with the consequences of changing the past. There's other variations of this out there, but that seems to be the gist. Apparently, the original leaked title was Descendants for the Win, which would presumably play into the Kingdom Cup competition. That's as far as I'm willing to peddle unverified information though. Otherwise, we've ventured too far into murky waters, and I don't really want to be responsible for people thinking certain things are going to happen in the movie, and then it doesn't come to fruition. The only reason I'm even giving this any credit at all is because it's seemingly everywhere. So even though I can't find a direct source, it would be difficult to believe that it isn't true. Trust Descendants to come up with something as corny as Overanalyse Kingdom Cup games though. With all that information out of the way, I suppose I'll try to see what kind of coherent plot I can piece together. Granted, take this with a heavy grain of salt, as I cannot confirm 100% the whole Overanalyse Kingdom Cup is actually going to happen. But to be honest, I don't really think that's going to be all relevant to my idea anyway. The cup for me is just an excuse to get all the kingdoms together and see who's good and who isn't, and to create enough chaos that the girls can disappear and do hero-saving shenanigans without too many people noticing their absence. So it seems there's going to be some significant consequences due to stopping Bridget getting pranked at the school dance, and the girls are going to be responsible for trying to fix it. Interestingly, there's going to be the conundrum of not making things go back to the way they were, as now there's new characters in the mix that previously wouldn't have been, i.e. Pink, Red's little sister. I mean, the girls are good people. There's zero chance they'd just wipe out somebody from the new existence. It'd be brutal. My instinct is that we're going to drop in on the story considerably after the end of the first movie, maybe a year, who's to say. However, I do think you need a considerable amount of time to let the consequences unfold of going back in time, and how that's changed all the characters' personalities and relationships. For example, Red now has a sister. How's that going to play out? It's also going to be tricky as aren't Red and Chloe attending Overanalyse Prep? That's a boarding school, right? So if that's the case, I assume Red won't exactly have a whole lot of time to bond with or get to know her new little sister. Either way, it's going to be interesting to see how they've changed. So they've come back, and people who were nice now could be mean, and vice versa. I would think that maybe some of the Descendants we actually meet might have parents with the opposite perspective than what we would predict. The most notable, I think, is going to be Cinderella. I can't help but shake the feeling that the school dance was supposed to be a pivotal moment in her story too. I know at the end of 4 we didn't see any real change and she was just happy to see her daughter, but still, the shadiness in which she brushed off Chloe's comment when she asked about what happened to Red's mum, on top of Red being so ready to kill her former best friend, there's gotta be more to that, right? I mean, you already had that tease where Bridget and Alla were supposed to go together. I wonder if Alla was somehow prevented from going or was delayed, and so Bridget got pranked all by herself, only for Alla to come later and be the belle of the ball, so to speak, falling in love with Charming and all that jazz. You know, she has the time of her life whilst also not caring about her friend. Maybe she was unaware about what happened, or maybe she didn't intervene. I just think that Bridget would have to feel utterly abandoned to turn that evil, right? She's already been bullied so much, that happening to her from the villain kids probably wouldn't send her over the edge. Maybe her only friend not supporting her though? That might. That's what I really think the movie's going to be about. No more time travel, but instead the girls attempting to reconcile what happened between their mothers. Although, I think they're not going to cotton on immediately that that's what they're supposed to do. There's going to be more to the story. Unverified claims that could be true state there's going to be some unexpected villain that's going to cause all sorts of strife within the movie. A name was even floated around briefly, although that definitely felt more unbelievable. The name is Urin? Spelt U-R-Y-N. I mean, come on. There's no way that's real, right? I know they come up with terrible names for the Descendants that have obvious links to their parents, but a villain named Urin? No, that's just terrible. I saw people speculating this supposed villain could be related to Ursula and Uma and Uliana, and whilst that could be true, they all start with U, it would also be kind of old, wouldn't it? How long is this family going to be the main villain of the franchise for? Now, I kind of think this is bogus and made up by some 13-year-olds looking for quote-unquote unique names beginning with U. I do think there's most likely a villain, though, that isn't directly Cinderella or the Queen of Hearts. There just always is, and they tend to stick to the tried and tested formula pretty closely. I mean, you gotta have a banger villain song after all. Some people suspect Red's little sister Pink, and I think that is a pretty good guess. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. It would feel somewhat repetitive though, having the sickly sweet girl become mean and awful, but I don't really mind as long as they do it well. It would also be an interesting conundrum for Red, as she could theoretically go back in time and change things out to wipe her sister out of existence so they don't have to deal with her being a villain, but we all know that's not going to happen. Still, it adds stakes and drama and a level of complexity that I would enjoy. The only way I could see this happening, though, is if they actually commit to doing a trilogy, because there's a person in all of this that I don't think people are paying enough attention to. Maddox Hatter. I made a video previously exploring the concept as to whether presenting Red with the time travel pocket watch was for nefarious purposes. I came to the idea that it could have been, but purely from the perspective that he wanted to get his dad back, as I hypothesized an evil Queen of Hearts probably had him whacked. Now I'm not so sure though. That could definitely be the case, but he almost seemed sympathetic about Red's mother. He knew that she wasn't always evil, and so I assume they had some sort of history. Now hold your horses, I'm not saying that Red is their secret love child or something, but I do think there's more to the story, and with a father that should have had some relevance to their family, and now a son being introduced in this one, I think he most likely has the biggest motivation to turn against them. I just can't get past the feeling that he'd have to be so stupid as to not realize that Red would rob him. He knows her very well, and I'm convinced he was goading her there. It must have been planned. However, maybe the way things turned out afterwards wasn't to his liking, or maybe he thinks he could have done things even better, I'm not sure. But I just have this feeling that he's going to be integral to the story, and that he could be some ultra mastermind coordinating everything going on. Either way, if the new Wonderland Descendants ends up just being 2 movies, I think they'll go with him next. If not, then he'll be the final villain. That's my bet. I do wonder about Red's father though. We've had no mention of him in the first film, and now with a second child, you'd think we'd know who he is, or at least have him be cast. Maybe it'll be a Descendants 3 situation where 2 Disney characters that should have absolutely no connection are now parents to the main hero. With that being said, place my bets on Prince Hans. That would be funny. In the end, we got some pretty interesting information. A new title, a slew of new characters, and a broad plot outline. I think it's clear that Red and Chloe will team up again and have to stop some villains working behind the scenes in Wonderland, with a bonus guess that Maddox Hatter is masterminding it all. Pretty early call, but I think it would make for a fun and intriguing story. If they make a 6th one though, do you reckon they'll bring back the OGs for a cool finale? That'd be pretty awesome. Getting ahead of myself though, they're still filming for at least another month, and we aren't expecting a release until summer of 2026. It's too long, I know, but maybe we'll get some more news in the meantime and my predictions might become more coherent. No promises, of course. With all that being said though, this is just my opinions and I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the Descendants 5 news? Are you excited for it? Maybe not? Do you have any more news to share? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment and subscribe and let me know.